What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Phaithful Phanatics show live here on DSM-Media's YouTube channel. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to support by smashing that subscribe button, turn on notifications for whenever we go live or post a video here. It is the best spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen like so with your host. I am one half of them this morning, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. Happy Victory Monday, my man. All is right back in Philadelphia sports. The Eagles win in the Kelly Greens on Sunday Night Football, 31-17 over the Miami Dolphins. They improved to 6-1 on the year. The Phillies come home to the bank tonight, up 3-2, one win away from back-to-back World Series appearances. The Sixers even start on Thursday, which we'll get into a little bit later on in the week. But obviously, even with all the stress and drama that comes with them, there's still excitement for them to get back on the floor, man. So it's back to being a great time here in Philadelphia. But what is going on this Monday, man?
Not much. Celebrating Victory Monday the right way. Getting back to work.
Sir. Did your avocado toast like Will?
Yeah, exactly, man. You got to do it right. Drink everything out of the Kelly Green. Eat everything in the green color that you can, and enjoy, man. Because last night was definitely a spectacular show, and those jerseys, by the way, are just beautiful. Right. I mean, there's nothing more I can say.
The atmosphere in general, right? Like the aesthetic of the field, the old school bird logo in the middle.
But like seeing the uniforms in general, man, I would switch them full time to the Kelly Green.
I wish.
Like I literally would. And I think that's one of the few things in life where the hype actually the actual real product exceeded the hype of the Kelly Green. Like we wanted it back for so long, and then they brought it back in the best, most imaginable fashion that you could bring it back in. And then you have the performance on top of it, so that makes it even better. But yeah, man, not just the Eagles, obviously not just the Kelly Green jerseys. The Fightins got back to their game on Saturday. We'll obviously get to talk about that a good bit. But yeah, the Sixers, I know everybody may be a little down on them, especially with the recent James Harden shit. But I was kind of, calculating everything with James Harden not there in the first place. So I'm not too let down by this situation right now. It's kind of predictable, and I'm still excited to see what this well-rounded Sixers team can do. Not the most star talent they've ever had, but it is one of the most well-rounded teams that they've ever had, most deep.
Yeah, man. But let's start right there with Sunday Night Football, man. Mrs. Scotty chiming in, no to the permanent Kelly Greens. I do wonder, though, I'm with it, but you do kind of sit here and think, would it take away the specialness, the nostalgia factor if you saw them week in and week out? But they're just too beautiful, man. The font, even the font for the Eagles in the end zone, it's better. It's
the logo. Like the all-white eagle, man. I love that. I love that logo. The font in the end zone was just beautiful.
And I don't hate this idea. Use them like the black jerseys, the alternates. Obviously, we're using them twice this year, but
I'm not trying to get rid of the black jerseys, though, man. I like the uniforms. I
that's true.
Uniforms. I saw people talking about that last night, but I love the black uniforms as well, so I wouldn't want to see them go.
That's true, man.
I would love to see if they want to wear all white all the time, switch it to the Kelly Green and make that the all white uniform, because I would love to see
I can't stand the all white, man. But D-Rab saying I would take those back as the main jerseys, man. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to balance.
I'm not going to sit here and push for it. Like, I don't hate the
because it's this. Like, we love the midnight green. It's just I think the one interesting point, I promise we're going to get to the game in a second. It's just I can't stop thinking about these jerseys, right? Like, I think the one thing that people kind of argue and push back against with the Kelly Greens is, at one point that was a dominant era of Eagles football, but it was also at one point a very bad and ugly football period for the Philadelphia Eagles in those uniforms. And that was kind of their era, that you had your phase. But for me, we've also now been in the midnight green for how long? I mean, over 23 years, right? Way more than that. So like, at what point are the midnight greens is that era kind of over? And then what green do you go to from there? If not switching back and kind of
Yeah.
rotating. So it'll be interesting, man, to see how what they decide to do moving forward. But the Eagles played gully. The Eagles played physical. They played tough. They played inspired. They played like the Eagles of last year, and it's exactly what I needed to see on prime time football. I said this to you before the show. Yes, they were 5-0 at one point this year. Yeah, they were 5-1, which is still great heading into this season. And you added all these new toys and the rookies and everything that we should be excited for. But last year, I felt like I was watching a machine week in and week out just roll over its opponents. And we hadn't seen that this year. What's missing? What's going wrong? The play calling, Jalen's turnovers, the decision making, the defense against Washington. It's not all clicking at one point or another. Last night, you got that. Yeah, Jalen had a pick six. Shouldn't have thrown it. Yeah, the very first drive that ended in a field goal was 3 bad red zone calls. After that, Jalen Hurts was nearly perfect, meaning after the pick six. And after the red zone calls, the Eagles went on to score all 3 times they got into the red zone. They finished 3 for 4 last night, man. Since the pick six, Jalen Hurts went 10 of 13 for 115 passing yards, a TD, and a passer rating of over 128. He also had 3 carries for 16 yards and 3 first downs. The Eagles scored 2 TDs in the 2 possessions since the pick six. That is the Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense I was waiting to see. That fourth quarter drive where you just imposed your will. You fed DeAndre Swift. You got into third and fourth and manageables, and you said, I'm going to run it right here, and you can't stop me. And they did it on multiple fourth downs. Nick Sirianni fired up, the swagger on the sideline. Last night was exactly what I needed to see, Scotty.
Yeah, absolutely. It was all pointing in the right direction, is what I would say. And I think we're starting to get back to that Eagles level football. The defense has been outstanding the last.
I didn't even touch on them yet.
Yeah, I mean they've held their own, and that's part of the equation. But the offense started to get it. They started to click in that second half. Really, you mentioned it, the fumble to start the game. The interception, the pick six from Jalen. The turnovers do need to stop. There's just no hiding from that. You're not going to get away with that every game.
No.
But that being said, when you play perfect football afterwards, it shows a little something about yourself that you're not rattled the rest of that game. Because I'll be honest, man, after that fumble in the first half, and then you get to the pick six, and I'm just sitting there like, man, I just do.
What's going on with him?
Like, that's where I was at last night. Like 8 interceptions on the season, a couple fumbles this year. You had the fumble in the Super Bowl. I'm sitting here thinking, do I even trust Jalen Hurts? What a way to answer that question. He comes out and makes me trust him in the second half. So I loved seeing that. Brian Johnson, I see the comment from Brett. It was better, but still very frustrating to watch at times. I mean, that first drive in the red zone with the QB draws. I mean, get a fucking clue. Like that's the first thing I'll say to that. But don't want to drag him down because he did have some great calls, especially in that second half and on that drive with Goddard to get him into the end zone. And that's what you needed to do. You go into this game against Miami. They struggle against tight ends, and he emphasized that weakness. He put Goddard in situations where he could succeed. And, I'll give a little bit of credit to Brian Johnson. I still don't understand the Gainwell stuff. But once again, you put up 30-plus points last night. It was a good, if not great, game against a really great opponent. And what I'll say, before I throw it back to you here, the Eagles played smash mouth, efficient football, and the Dolphins could not match them. And that is Eagles football to a T. When you are able to go out there and punch a team in their mouth, you mentioned it, the brotherly shove after brotherly shove in that second half, that's demoralizing for a defense when you cannot stop it once it gets tight, right? When they were – I heard the crowd booing whenever they went to punt it on that 1 4th down. And Sirianni had an awakening, and thank God for the crowd.
An epiphany of sorts, right?
Yeah,
a little kick in the ass, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I suspected going into this game, man. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, where maybe the Jets are just a physical ass team. That's their identity. That's their type of play. And unfortunately, that does match up very well with the Eagles because that's the way they play. They play smash mouth, win in the trenches football, and the Jets matched them, and they were able to win that game. The Dolphins are not that team, man. The
No.
Dolphins are that team that everybody was calling the Eagles last year, that soft team that plays weak schedule, 5-24 opponents, right? That's what I got from the Dolphins. They look soft. The first time I saw Tua get hit in his face, the ball went into the ground, and they're talking about how accurate he is as a QB. This is no shade to Tua. He got hit in the mouth and he didn't respond very well. That's what I would say, but he still had some flashes there last night. Overall, I'm kind of starting to disrespect the Miami Dolphins. It's only because of their fans this morning have been a little ridiculous and crybaby and whiny. But
I didn't even know they had fans, so
I do respect the Dolphins.
News
I
to me.
respect Tyreek Hill. I respect Tua in that offense, but let's throw some respect on that Eagles defense and this Eagles roster for stepping up when the name is called, man.
Yeah, no, let's talk about that, right? Because I highlighted the offensive star, and I think it was important to talk about Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson and give them their props and how physical they were. And I think the Eagles spread the ball around incredibly well, too. Dallas Goedert, 5 catches, 77 yards, a touchdown. Smitty had a couple big targets as well, averaged over 12 yards per catch. A.J. Brown continues that historic run. Now 5 straight games of 125 plus receiving yards. He went 10 for $137, a touchdown. Ridiculously strong and athletic. Like, you're just not bringing that dude down one-on-one in the open field. But the defense, Scotty, they held a team that, yes, is flashy and maybe not all that physical, but they were averaging 37 points per and close to 500 yards per game. The Eagles defense held them to 10 and under 250. 244 total yards of offense for the Miami Dolphins, 10 points because obviously 7 came on the pick 6 for the Dolphins defense. That is a clinic. Darius Slay making big plays, right? Eli Ricks looking good in a limited role. The defensive line, I mean, Hassan Reddick came out and said, "You think I'm just a pass rusher? Watch me blow this game up in the run-stopping department." From the opening jump. Dude, he put helmet into sternum multiple times early on in this game and blew up a run for -2, -3, -5 yards early on. Jordan Davis continues in the sack department, right? Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, they were all around the ball, all around Tua. And I think the biggest thing for me was, Tyreek Hill had the touchdown. He had a couple plays. I think they did a very, very good job limiting what Tyreek Hill and Tua could do to them last night, man. Yeah, Waddle was banged up, and I'm sure it affected their offense to a point. But at the end of the day, he was back out on the field. Maybe not 100%, but he was at least back. He wasn't out for the rest of the way. So they were full go. Obviously, I know beat up with their running backs a little bit, but hey, man, that Eagles defense came to play last night, and I saw a comment up earlier to start the show about that old physical Eagles defense in the Kelly Greens, and that's what that felt like, man. That game last night, it is by Brett. Their old school defense that goes with that jersey. That's what that felt like.
Yeah, no, I like what Brett said here as well. Reddick played like an old school BG, and that's exactly what it was, man. He set the tone early with that defensive stand, and it's the run defense, right? He completely shut down their rushing attack from the jump at the start of this game by covering his gap, and that's the gap that they love to run Mostert through, get him out on the edge, and let him explode. They like to break off big runs to get big plays, and Reddick single-handedly at a point in this game was stopping their run.
Yeah.
You look at Mostert in this game, I think he had like 45 rushing yards. I think they had 45 rushing yards total. And they were the number 1 rushing team in the NFL coming into this game. So
he had 45 and Ahmed had 3, so 48. Well, and then 2 at -3. So
45. So he single-handedly at one point set the tone with the rushing attack, or the rush defense, I should say. The 4 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss. You mentioned Slay. He was 3 of 5 on targets. I think 25, 37 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
25 QB rating, 1 interception. He makes the big play, keeps his name intact. My standout sleepers on the defense, man. I really liked Eli Ricks, as you mentioned. He made some noise last night. James Bradbury, I know he got beat on the double team.
Also got away with a little face mask pulley.
Got away, hey, but you got to play physical. People get away with it against us all the time. So why shouldn't we play physical and do the same thing? I like that they were willing to take some more risks last night, play some bump up coverage.
Oh yeah.
Let these guys press a little bit. And then Jordan Davis, you mentioned it, not only in the sack department, which we don't really expect it from him, but maybe we should at this point. But also in the run game, man, just keeping that wall sturdy and not allowing to get himself to get pushed back and letting these offensive linemen get into the second level of the defense. He is a mainstay in that defensive line as well. So all around, I do agree. It was a very, mean green machine type of defense. And we got turnovers. That's the biggest thing that I loved about this game as well, man. So you're starting to see, I did want to point that out as well with mentioning Eli Ricks. You saw Nolan Smith get a sack last night. The young guys are starting to get acclimated as well. You get Sidney Brown last night. He gets in the mix. Nakobe Dean in the mix last night. So you're starting to get this defense healthier, and it's starting to look a lot more like it's supposed to. And
yeah,
kudos to Sean Desai.
Yeah,
the right buttons.
That was my final point, man.
His game plan, his mechanisms are working, and I can't say enough about it, man. Honestly,
yeah. No, you got to tip your cap. If we're not going to give a ton of credit to one coordinator, the rest of the credit has to go to the other coordinator. And Sean Desai deserves a ton of respect and credit so far through 7 weeks. Dude, let's be honest, man. He's had one bad game. One? The Washington game. The Washington game's a head scratcher that you go back and how is that possible? The most sacked quarterback in the league. They drive down, force OT, all of that stuff. Outside of that, when has this Eagles defense not played up to that standard so far this year? I mean, what do you want to argue Minnesota? We were up 27-7. I mean, that was just sit back in the fourth quarter. And you can argue if that's the right or wrong thing to do in that scenario, but all teams do it. So I'm not going to give him shit for that one. Outside of that, there's been nothing. And then you finally get to this test. You get to this moment with this high-flying offense, 37 points per game, man. And to me, Miami was kind of all the teams out there, right? Miami was the offense that scared me the most over this strength of schedule because I thought they matched up really well with the Eagles. I never foresaw a plan where the Eagles were going to be able to put a cap on that speed and explosiveness and all the motion. Like Buffalo, strength on strength, physicality on physicality, right? San Francisco, same thing. This was the offense that I thought, man, they're going to be running circles. They're going to be running screens. This is going to be a long night. Nope. They found a way to not only slow it down, basically just dominate it for 60 minutes almost, man. So kudos to Sean Desai. That defense, like you said, they call him big play for a reason, man. He comes over because at that point in the game, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a 7-point game at that time, no? I believe so, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, let's go get 6 and let's put the icing on. Like they were they were on our side of the 50 when that play occurred.
That happened inside the 10-yard line. So, it was definitely a close one, but he comes through and makes a big play, and that's what Slay is out there for. That's what I love to see from him. I like your point about, matchups because I don't know. I kind of looked at this Miami Dolphins team. They are scary just because they are so fast. They can score so quickly, but they do just come off as soft, man. I don't know. There was this part of them, that beat down factor that if they get matched up in the trenches, are they really going to be able to hang with the Philadelphia Eagles? And to that extent, I think the 49ers, even the Buffalo Bills, are still built a little bit better in that fashion, right? That type of play. And I still think they are the more tough, the tougher opponent, the tougher matchup.
Yeah.
And you saw what the Buffalo Bills did to the Dolphins, right? Like they beat the shit out of them. So there is like a little bit of a soft or weak type of characteristic that comes with this team. If you don't have a defensive line that can get to Tua and get in his face, he'll pick you apart, and that offense will pick you apart. But I will say while I'm giving them all this credit, Tyreek Hill dropped a few passes that
He
he
did.
dropped.
And
I mean,
one was a walk-in touchdown.
Hands.
Yeah, one was a walk-in touchdown.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you that was kind of odd, but hey,
Smitty's drop passes too. It
right,
happens.
exactly, man. So everything kind of evens itself out week to week, right? Yeah, they were missing some pieces. It's all right.
We're gonna get a new safety soon,
Yeah.
so we'll get Reed Blankenship back, and then add a star
Yeah.
safety in the mix there, and our defense will look.
From what I've seen so far by the Miami Dolphins, they only have 2 losses on the year, but those 2 losses tell me that team will not be playing in February.
Yeah.
Right now, they look like the definition of a B+ team that beats up on all of the B- and C's and D's out there. But when it comes to playing A football, the Bills, the Eagles, they didn't just lose, man.
Like,
they got the dog shit kicked out of them in both.
Can you imagine? They actually received an advantage by playing this game earlier in the season like this, where the weather isn't too bad. Come to Philadelphia and play in the cold weather and see how the Dolphins play.
Yeah. No,
like that's where I'm at with the Dolphins. Maybe that's part of it, coming from the warm weather state. You come into that cold, you have to come up to Buffalo and New England and New York for the AFC East. I don't know. That just doesn't seem like a good pairing. Snow, rain, wet, cold in the Miami Dolphins and their high-paced, high-fast attack on offense. So I don't know. I agree. Once it gets to February, you get into those colder. If they don't have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which you won't at a certain point, I just don't know. I don't see them being able to run the football, ground and pound, and Tua just make the throws that he needs to, but they just run the football and play physical. I don't see them as that team. But that being said, everybody coming into this game, I don't want it to be on the other end of the scale where now everybody's saying that wasn't a tough opponent for the Eagles. It's a tough opponent. I'm not saying that there's
the Eagles made them look not so tough. That's
just not a great matchup for the Dolphins. They can go out and beat some of these other teams pretty handedly. A tough physical team like the Eagles, and if the Eagles play the right way they did last night, just shouldn't be a change in that game.
By the way,
the Eagles could have beat them by more, honestly. I think
sure.
Good the Eagles did play.
For sure. Last thing I will say, 0 penalties. 0 penalties for the Philadelphia Eagles last night. That's locked in. That is inspired football. That is as a collective group, as a collective unit. You heard the video. You saw the videos on TikTok, right, of Sirianni in the locker room and coming down the tunnel afterwards, how fired up he was. There was a clear message this week from last week's loss to now, whether that message was towards doubters or media or themselves because of how poor they played last week. There was a message somewhere along the line. They played a penalty-less game, and they were able to go in and play in all 3 phases and get the job done against a Miami Dolphins team who posed a real threat last night.
Let me ask you this. How do you feel about Jalen and the knee brace, that whole situation that everybody's talking about?
I don't know, man, because then I saw a tweet from someone that was at the game that said, scratch that. It doesn't even look like he has a brace on now. Obviously, it wasn't over anything. That it was all assumption that it looked like it was under his socks and all that. If it happened, I could tell you when it happened. It happened in the Rams play when I told you I have no idea how his knee didn't fall apart. That's when it happened. And B, I will say this, and we're not going to speculate about anything. The conversation is going to move right on. Whatever's going on, I hope he works his way through it, and I hope him the best. It sounds like something's going on with Jalen, whether that's personal. AJ and Nick both made comments last night. AJ said he's not going to air out his business, and Nick said, I'm not going to get into it, but he's so strong.
It's interesting.
Something could be going on. Hope for the best. Hope and he'll get right, man. But yeah, what was the injury? He said it wasn't.
I heard it was. From what I heard, they said it happened pregame. he like
There's
tweaked
just no
something.
way. I'll tell you exactly. If
Well,
it's the same knee, I'll tell you exactly when it happened then. It's
the thing that I would say is if he's injured, then why are we running design QB runs? I mean, like
Thank
that
you.
would be my question, right?
Thank you.
Like if we're doing that, then stop the QB runs, make him a pocket passing quarterback, let him run the football with the running backs. Like you would simplify it if you're going that route. So I'm not, like you said, I'm not going to speculate too much, and I'm not too worried. Just
all right. Maybe it is injury related then. I didn't see that. It was clarified that it was injury related, not mentally related. But
yeah, doesn't. I mean, I don't know. It would make more sense if it was mental related, but I don't know. There's people saying that he was limping at times. I think he could just be a little beat up, man. Like I think it's as
right.
simple as that. He got hit hard in that Jets game. He got hit hard last night at times from blitzes. So I think it can just mount up. It can become a lot. And
Oh, by the way,
gets a little tweak.
by the way, basically the game-ending throw to go line up another touchdown to AJ Brown,
Yeah.
absolute dart.
Yeah.
Dart under pressure, hit AJ with a great catch downfield in a double team. Ridiculous connection there. They go on to score. Beautiful. Wraps that one up. Eagles improve to 6-1 on the year. 1-0 in the Kelly Greens. One more game left to play in them, man.
A question for you, man. AJ Brown, like, would you rather have any other receiver? Like, I love Tyreek Hill. I love him.
Yeah, I know.
I love him. But would I rather have him? Like, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to say with AJ Brown on my team, like, oh, I would rather have this.
I think it's the duo, right? I think it's how him and Jalen work together. Would Jalen as a pit, like you see all the things they highlight with Tua, right? Where Tua's throwing to the window 8 feet from where Tyreek Hill is. Would that line up with what Jalen likes to do as a passer, right? Where AJ Brown and him are just more of a brute, physical, get the ball in space. It works kind of that dynamic, man.
It's just like AJ Brown, you know, for example, he gets close to catches a ball, it's 3rd and 8, he catches it, 6 yards down the field. He needs 2 yards to gain. He's gonna get you those 2 yards. Right. He's just like, I don't know. He's just a fucking monster. Like on the touchdown catch, right? He catches the ball and then splits 2 defenders and takes it in the end zone. Like he's that strong. And like he's shown the ability to go up, get the ball, make one-handed catches. His hands are elite. Like his body is elite, right? Like I don't know, man. It's hard to think that there's another receiver in the NFL. If there is, it would be Tyreek Hill. It's hard to believe that there's another receiver in the NFL.
Right. The thing that I'm looking forward to is now, with this becoming more of a public thing, and I think he tied Megatron last night. Now that it's up to 5, it's like at what defense, what team is going to say, okay, he's not doing that to us. Well, the moment you go and try to examine that and over help that and over game plan for that, well, Devontae Smith's going to have 167 yards.
I think that's what you
that's what I'm waiting for, right?
I think that's what you saw early on in the game last night. The first half, AJ Brown was not really involved that much. You saw Goddard very early. You saw Smitty early with targets. And then it started to go AJ's way. Maybe the attention, you have to address Goddard, so you have to put some more attention there. Opens up AJ. But yeah, to your point, you got to pick your poison with this team. Saw a little bit of Julio last night. That was nice to see. Nice to see him get a catch in his first game.
Yeah, they lied to me, though.
They already had more catches than Olamide in that game. But no, I'm excited, man, about this team. They've reinstilled the faith, and it's throws like that from Jalen to AJ late in the game in that tight spot that reinstill that faith. Like that is why I'm so high on this team. That is why I'm so high on Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. And the last few things, just to kind of I don't know if you want to wrap up, if you have a few more things you want to say about it, but just the last few things that I'm taking away from the game and kind of moving forward with. Cut the turnovers. You cut the turnovers last night, man.
It's perfect.
You win that game probably by 30 points, if we're being honest. Doesn't even have to be that close. The red zone play calling was better. Clean it up in the first place. Get a clue about the QB draws. Limit them. Eliminate them if you want. You limit them to maybe 1 per drive at least. That would be cool with me. I
one
think
per
us
half?
as fans, we have to learn to live with Gainwell. I think it's a trend now. Like we're gonna
I'll
just have to
take.
live with Gainwell in the second half. Like I
Hold
don't
on.
know.
I'll see your Gainwell, and I'll raise you just overall personnel packages as my last thing to continue to clean up. Scotty,
Yeah,
there were moments last night where Britton Covey was on the field, like as a wide receiver,
I did see that.
along with Olamide Zaccheaus, along with Kenneth Gainwell, and along with Jack Stoll. Okay, whatever personnel package you have in your playbook for Olamide Zaccheaus, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra, Brayton Covey, and Kenneth Gainwell to be on the field together at the same time, rip it up, burn it, shove it up someone's ass. I don't care. Get rid of it, dude. That should never, ever happen. And do you want to know why it can't happen, Scotty? Take a guess at what the play is when they're on the field together. It's a running play.
Yeah.
And they did it three times in one possession. Well, if I'm noticing this at home on television, what do you think the opposing defense is going to look at when they go, oh, 18's out? Oh, yeah. 13's in that. Well, this is a run coming.
And the thing is, man, it's not like they're spelling Goddard, when he's tired after, it's a long drive and he's had 3 catches in a row. Like, no, it's when they come back onto the field, you see Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra coming out on the field for 12.
By the way, I never want to hear that Kenneth Gainwell has a role on this team because DeAndre Swift is a piss poor pass blocker. The only reason Jalen Hurts took a shot to the ribs on that deep ball to A.J. Brown is because Kenneth Gainwell just ran and whiffed straight by the free rusher.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he was hit hard. They're lucky it wasn't a turnover. So don't tell me this dude's great in pass protection, and that's why he gets to play 40% to Swift's 60% or whatever the case is.
Every time I watch Gainwell run, it's like I see what he does, and I think Swift could just do more. Like we could get more out of that.
He scored. Hey, that was a physical run on the goal line, spun, kept his balance. I'm not trying to hate on him, man, but to me, Scotty, 15-8 isn't enough of a disparity in terms of carries. It's just not. And then when you take when you just take into account total snaps, that's even closer in Gainwell's favor when you look at it. So I don't get it, man. The last thing I do want to get into Phillies here in a second. The last thing I would say to continue with the personnel thing, I actually texted it to you when we were in that kind of frustrated zone when we were, we allowed them to score at the end of the half, and then we took a sack on the hand, blah, blah, blah. At one point, I believe in the third quarter, they were driving. It might have been, I don't know if it was the Slay interception drive, but they were driving.
With Barnett and BG on the field.
And Hassan Reddick basically had an entire drive off until third down. And Brandon Graham played that kind of stand-up edge rusher linebacker hybrid. And Derek Barnett did the same on the other side of the line. Now, that's fine if you're rushing 4 or 5 and those two are up and coming after you. I watched Derek Barnett and Brandon Graham both drop into coverage last night. I'm not complaining about Sean Desai. I'm not complaining about anything this defense did. If that happens again, I'm going to record it, and we're going to analyze it live on the show. Because what in the actual fuck is Brandon Graham doing, dropping back into zone coverage, looking around for who he has to pick up in coverage? Derek Barnett on the other side. Oh, my God,
and that was the one of few instances where the Dolphins were actually able to run the ball last night.
Yes,
that was one of the few
and
times.
the broadcast actually said it. They were like, They're running the ball because Hassan Reddick's not on the line of scrimmage.
Not in the game. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not Hassan Reddick's not going to play every snap. Brandon Graham probably played 7 straight snaps, and Hassan Reddick sat on the sideline until 3rd down.
Yeah.
Why?
And we watched them go down the field. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Little things like that, right? Like not trying to complain in a win, but it's something that you notice. Something else, man, right? I get it. You know, maybe it doesn't matter if no one stays on the field in this case, but he gets a sack. You take him off the field immediately for Derek Barnett or Brandon Graham. No, Nolan Smith just got the sack. He went around the edge. He got there very quick because you have to if you're going against Tua in this offense. Let him get another rep, man. That's okay. He's a rookie. I get it. Like, let the man get a rep. He might be hot right now. Like, I would just love to see a little bit of a mix of Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick at times. I love Josh Sweat, so I don't want to take him off the field by any means. But if you're bringing Derek Barnett in, let's just forget that. Let's bring in
right.
If you want to drop somebody in the coverage, let's drop Nolan Smith in the coverage. He's athletic. He's fast.
Right. He did it last year.
They need to give him a little bit more play. Now that we're just kind of talking about that in general, I think Nolan Smith, time to ramp him up a little bit, man. Let him a little loose on that defensive side of the ball and get. Not BG. I love BG. BG, we can keep him in the rotation, keep him in, maybe not as much. But Derek Barnett, I'm not 100% sold that he needs to touch the field, man.
Yeah. No, and listen, I'm not trying to hate on Brandon Graham.
He threw a touchdown right after Nolan Smith's sack.
I think so. I think that was the deep ball, the double team that Tyreek Hill beat. It's clear that Brandon Graham, the age, another year, another off season, that it's starting to get there, right? Like
you can see the difference between the other guys on the field and then BG on the field, and I think that's where you can tell it's not necessarily like BG just slowing down, but when Hassan Reddick's in the game, it's ridiculous. When Josh Sweat's in the game, it's ridiculous. Like you can tell the difference.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm looking it up now just to clarify with myself before I say something dumb. But yeah, man, he's got half a sack, and 3 tackles. Like I'm not hating on him. He's a great veteran presence. There's a role for him on this team, but it definitely needs to start to be a little bit more limited to allow guys like Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick to get as much playing time and production as they can, because that 10 sack Brandon Graham isn't walking through the door this year. So that's the last thing.
He didn't record a stat last night.
I think this is a key. This is a great point from D-Rab. You want them in the rotation, respect the rotation, respect BG, just handle it better. There's no reason that Brandon Graham at this point of his career, with the lack of production through 7 weeks, needs to play 6 straight snaps while Hassan Reddick is on the sideline. And it's evident that they're having success while you're doing this. Like, it's not like Miami didn't cross midfield. No, Miami went straight down the field the moment you went to that.
And I think I would throw Fletcher Cox in that bucket as well. Now, Fletcher Cox, I don't think he is down as bad as BG. But you can just tell a difference when Jalen Carter's in
sometimes less is more. Less is more. And the less Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham play, maybe a little bit more of an uptick in production when they are in the field, because they're fresher and they're healthier and they're sprier on a 3rd down to get after the quarterback.
To put it once again, to add respect to their name, because like I don't want it to sound bad. These are long-standing birds, right?
Especially after what the defense did last night.
When we get to the tight moments of this season, that is when you want BG, right? When you want to see if he can make you one of those plays in the playoffs. Fletcher Cox, same thing. Maybe he gets a tackle for loss in the playoffs, so on and so forth. So like you said, like D-Rab said, you want the coaches just to handle the personnel a little bit more thoroughly and let the players that are supposed to be on the field be on the field. It goes the same way with offense. It's not that I don't need to see Gainwell on the field. It's okay. 5 snaps, 10 snaps a game. I don't need to see Gainwell 50-50 with Swift as far as snaps. I don't need to see that, because when I watch them play,
Yeah.
you can see the difference in their play.
100%. You can see the difference in the offense. The difference in the offense will come out and stall with Kenneth Gainwell on the field at times when he's on sustained drives, right? So we'll see, man. Again, when it comes to personnel, it is something that we as fans and doing this show the one thing we have to do is take a deep breath, even though we might be frustrated in the moment, week to week, game to game, because you do have to keep in mind it is a long season. And within this rotation and these snap counts, I'm sure there is a methodical reason as to why and keeping guys fresh to get them towards the finish line. But at the same time, you just kind of question, well, wouldn't that make more sense for the veterans to get there? But, and listen, this is just kind of a PSA for any athlete, let alone younger athletes. And I don't even know how old Jalen Phillips is, but he might be older than me. You don't mock the opposing team and fan base, meaning you don't poke the bear when you're losing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a smart tip, right? A little nugget of advice for everyone out there, kids. Like when you're losing 17-10, I believe it was at that point, you probably don't get up and do the eagle wave and point to the crowd and blow kisses at the crowd and whatever. What did Jalen Phillips do the rest of the game?
Got shut down.
I'm not sure I heard his name. I'm not sure I heard his name called the rest of the game. So
I think Nick Chubb was the only one with. Nick Chubb had
Bradley Chubb.
Not Nick Chubb, Bradley Chubb. 2 sacks and a forced fumble for him last night. Jalen Phillips just the one sack. So man, great all around game. Hey, the Birds clap. Yeah, give him a pat on the back, a round of applause. Sean Desai, well done. I love what I'm seeing from the defense here. I'm hoping to add some talent at safety.
Safety action.
Future. Yeah, we need one of those big name safeties. We need one of them to come through. And hopefully Jalen is okay. Hopefully he's healthy. We got the Commanders next week. So God willing, if he needs maybe a game off, don't want it by any means.
Right.
If you need one before this gauntlet gets really started, that would be the game to take a little break. But
if there's a little knee sprain or anything that can be fixed with 10 days off or something.
Find his rhythm last night. In the second half, like we talked about, after that pick 6, he started to look like himself.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's turned on. He's him, and we can move forward with this. And great W. Great victory.
I agree, man. Speaking of great W's.
Yes, sir.
Let's travel back to Saturday night where the Phillies take a 3-2 series lead in Arizona to come home tonight. Game at 5:07 with a chance to punch their ticket back to the World Series for consecutive years. But let's talk about this weekend, man. Yeah, switch the caps over. Yeah. Obviously, the last show we did here on the Phaithful Fanatic show last Friday, we broke down a game 3 loss in Arizona. The offense was stagnant. They were shut down. They scored 1, lost 2-1, and we were sitting here. All right, how's this team going to respond? We know the Nick Castellanos quote after the Braves game 2 loss, right? This team thrives when they're punched in the mouth. They come out, they go down early 2-0 against the Diamondbacks in game 4. We're starting to reel. They come back, they go up 5-2, and then the mistakes start to occur. The bullpen usage starts to occur. Rob Thompson yanks Christopher Sanchez in the 3rd inning. We could talk about that. We could talk about how early he used Jeff Hoffman. We could talk about using Orion Kirkering on a back-to-back when he hadn't done it in his entire professional career. We could talk about using Craig Kimbrell in the 8th after throwing 26 pitches and blowing the game the night prior. We could talk about it all. But the Phillies lose that game 6-5. They get Zach Gallen at home in game 5, and you're starting to wonder, oh my God, are they going to be coming back to Philly and need to win both? Are they going to be down in this series after being up 2-0 heading to the desert? And the big fellas said, not so fast. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, and maybe most importantly, Zach Wheeler said not so fast. They shut the door on any thought process of being down at 3-2 in this series. Zach Wheeler was freaking out of this world, as he has been all postseason long, man. But you needed him in this one. And the fact that he knew it, Scotty, the fact that he could come out afterwards and say the bullpen was used up. I needed a long outing. The fact that you can know that in that spot, 2-2 series of a championship series, and to come out and dominate the way he was able to was ridiculous. Obviously, the Phillies come out top of the first inning. Schwarber leads it off with a little infield single to the left side. They score 2 in the first inning, and I think that really set the tone for this offense, man, above anything else. To get up early in this game, to double steal. Bryce Harper obviously makes that play at home plate. Bryson Stott delivers with a 2-out RBI single. There was so much we could talk about. We're going to talk about it, but thank God this team is coming home up 3-2, man.
Yeah, man, because we talked about this on Saturday. I came over, we watched the game together, and that D-backs team, they play hard, right? They're cool and they're fun and they're young and they're not that good though. Like they're just not.
Off,
they're
man.
Talented enough to be beating the Philadelphia Phillies in this
Alec
series.
Thomas hitting 2-run home runs off the bench. What did he hit? 8 home runs this year in the regular season?
But that is the comment right there. Zach freaking Wheeler. He took control of this series and he did what Zach Gallen couldn't, right? He did what Merrill Kelly couldn't in this series. Because you look at this series, the way it played out, the way that the Diamondbacks bullpen game went, and the way that Brandon Scott came out and pitched in game 3, it actually worked out really well for them to have 3 games in a row in Arizona. You had your first 2 aces on the mound in Philadelphia, so you just need to steal one of those games with one of your guys. They weren't able to do that. They get back to Arizona, their bullpen and their third pitcher, they get the job done. Then you get back to their ace again, and that's the difference. Zach Wheeler to Zach Gallen, it didn't have a chance, right? And that's what I love about this. As of right now, Zach Wheeler is my NLCS MVP. I think you just have to right now, the way he's playing. The guy that I would say is competing with him right now, Kyle Schwarber, that guy is ice cold right now. And I say that, I mean, he's on fire.
Oh, yeah, like ice in his veins type of ice cold.
In his veins, but he's on fucking fire right now. And I won't be surprised if he's tonight, man. I won't be surprised. Nola tonight, obviously we'll get into him in the pregame. That's another guy I think if he has another outing like he did in game 2, we could see him get into the conversation for that NLCS MVP. But that just speaks to where we're at with this Phillies team. We got a couple different guys that are all playing outstanding. And in that game, you just saw it bounce back. Bryce, we asked for him. We wanted him to answer a call in a time of need. What did he do? Comes out, hits a home run, gets to the home plate 3 different times in this game, 3 runs. So he's finding ways to get scores in. And the Phillies reinstilled that faith back in us. You know why I was honestly just so nervous for that game. What, game 5? Is it game 5? Yeah, game 5. Game 6 tonight. Yeah, game 5 on Saturday. The reason I was so nervous, even with Wheeler at the mound, I just didn't know about that park, man. Like being able to crank it out. Like I didn't know at the Phillies, with the way that they have been attacking this team, if they would be able to get the big shot home runs that they've been looking for in this series. In the 3rd game in Arizona, they finally started to get some of those to go. And we got some runs to drop. But I think Wheeler, man. Wheeler, ace. How did he get here from the Mets? I can't answer that question, Martian.
They didn't want to pay him.
That was a fuck up by the Mets. They do that often, though.
And the contract is just looking better and better year by year, big game by big game. It's utterly ridiculous, man.
It's always fuck the Mets. Never changes, man. But
no, but
I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, no, obviously, it's following game 4, like I said, Friday, Saturday, so we haven't been on here to even talk about all that went wrong in game 4 and how we were feeling, man. But I was dejected after game 4. And this team just continued to battle back and prove me wrong and make me look silly. But I tweeted out like, man, this season could be over after that loss because, all right, yeah, you lost 2-1 in game 3. All right, it's not a big deal, but you have to respond now because Gallen's coming up on Sunday. You can't lose the Fox start and then the bullpen game. And everything that could go wrong from a pitching perspective in that game went wrong. The decision making, just not being able to throw strikes out of the bullpen continued to plague this team. And now you're sitting here not only tied 2-2, but now you're looking ahead and you're going, wow, the bullpen's fatigued. The offense, the power numbers have gone way down. And now the bullpen almost looks like it could be an issue against think about against an Astros or a Rangers team. So now the wheels are starting to turn up here. Like, man, this team is within 24 hours could be really, really in a bad way.
Yeah.
And they just continue to prove why that's not going to happen this year. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So, well, first, let me just address Martian here. Yeah, I don't get mad on the show often. I try to speak in reasonable terms and try to not over exaggerate or get too upset here, even when we lose.
So what's that mean, bro? You've seen me get mad?
That's no, man, no. We balance
each
other out, man. And I have my days where I'm a Negadelphia. Don't get it twisted. I have my days. But no, what you were talking about there, man. I do agree with you. I wanted to ask you. Moving forward, because in game 5, Topper really didn't have to do anything too puzzling, right? Like he didn't have to make too many tough decisions with the way Wheeler was pitching on the mound. So with that being said, where are you at with Topper right now? Because that game 5, it's not like that's a game that reinstills faith in Topper. You know what I mean? So where are you at with Topper right now? Going back to game 4, the decisions that were made in that game that kind of cost you that game in a sense. Obviously, the Orion Kirkring putting him in that tough spot. When they were up? What?
At that point, we were up 5-2.
Game 4, but nonetheless, the decisions in game 3 and then game 4. How are you feeling about Topper as of right now, going into this final part of this series and then hopefully the World Series?
I think he is somewhat of a concern for me right now, just from a pure pitching perspective. I don't think he fully trusts anybody except Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. Yeah. And when you look at what he has done with Ranger Suarez at times throughout this postseason, I don't think Ranger's gone past 5, right? When you look at what he did with Christopher Sanchez, who, gave up 2 runs early, wasn't aware, forgot the amount of outs that would have gotten you a double play. You give up a run the next batter or 2. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't perfect by any stretch, but to sit there and know that Arizona is throwing a bullpen game that day, and then to essentially just even the playing field in the 3rd inning was mind-boggling to me. Yeah. Or second, whenever it was, could have been. It was absolutely mind-boggling to me to say, wow, this game's 2-0, and at 38, 37 pitches, I'm pulling Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah.
So when I look at it from that way, you do question, maybe if they somehow lost tonight and you had Ranger on the mound tomorrow, what he'll do. You question if you advance and get to the World Series, what he's going to do over the course, how he's going to use this bullpen. I think one thing I will give him kind of the pass for is so many people, when they see a pitcher have a bad outing, and don't get me wrong, man, the Craig Kimbrell experience is stressful, but so is the Sir Anthony Dominguez experience, and so is the Gregory Soto experience, and so is this person, and so is that person. The
Even
problem is what
in some tight spots, like it's across the board.
Problem is when someone has a stressful outing or they give up a run or can't throw strikes in the postseason, we sit here and go, he can't throw again. Well, how many guys are you going to say that for before Rob Thompson doesn't have a bullpen? Yeah. Because if you're saying that Craig Kimbrell can't pitch again in the postseason, well, we really need to dig deep and look at this bullpen then, because now what? Jose Alvarado's your closer. All right, who's pitching the 8th?
Right.
Are you trusting Hoffman to pitch the eighth? Or are you trusting Sir Anthony? If one of them's pitching the eighth, who's pitching the sixth? So once you start plucking guys away who've been there for you all season long, you get into this pickle of now.
If not him, then who?
Now,
yeah,
you still can't throw Craig after he threw 26 pitches the night before.
Yeah,
but it wasn't just that, man. It was the fact you took Sanchez out too early. Not only did you take him out too early, you didn't use Walker or Michael Lorenzen. Why are they even on the postseason roster if you're not going to use them in that situation? Yeah. You use Hoffman early, so he's gone from your bullpen. To go to Kerkering in that spot, there's just so much. Sir Anthony, right? He throws Sir Anthony, has a shaky inning, gets out of it. Phew. He brings him back out for the next inning. Uh-oh. Whoa, what are we about to do? Yeah. One pitch pop-up. 1 out. He yanks him for Gregory Soto against a righty. Why would you not just leave Sir Anthony Dominguez out there until, if he gives up a double the next at-bat, well, now you go get him. But you don't just get the one pitch out and then turn over to Gregory Soto, who's been a mess all year long. And shocker, continued to be a mess in the big moment.
It's funny, man. Even as you were talking through that, I go back to game 3 and just like even the decision when to take Ranger out, it's like just trust Ranger, even if it's just for one more out or 2 more outs, right? Like trust Ranger. He's pitching a gem right now in game 3, and you completely wasted it with the decisions that were made. To that point, it's going to happen for a lot of different managers. You're not in the best situations when you get to the postseason. You're playing a bunch of these games in a tight span, but you still just got to be a little bit more logical. And I think that's the disconnect right now, right? Where people do question Topper, because a lot of the choices aren't necessarily analytical or logical in a sense. And I think that's the problem, because it is interesting. You think about it, God willing, we'll talk about the game tonight. We'll pregame that on the pregame show, but they lose this game tonight, and then you do go into a Rangers start tomorrow.
Right. Is he getting yanked in the 4th?
How many innings is he getting? Like, are we going to play this game again? You know what I mean?
Let's do me a favor tonight, Fightins. How about this? Let's not let Topper even have to make that decision.
Let's not do that.
Let's wrap it up. We'll talk about that on the pregame show.
Let me ask you one more question, though.
Oh,
the Sanchez part, obviously Topper didn't have enough faith to leave him out there. Do you go a different route once you get to that stage again in the World Series, if you have to throw out a 4th starter? Do you go Topper?
No, I would probably throw Sanchez again. I think he has kind of been that guy all year long for you.
Maybe he can go longer now he has had a start.
Even though he wasn't crisp, like the changeup, he wasn't throwing for strikes. Obviously had the mistake, right? Gave up 2 early. Like, I get it. He wasn't perfect by any stretch. But I just don't see a world where, Taijuan Walker is going to come out in game 4 of the World Series and be stoic and be kind of calm, cool, and collected and get the job done for you early on in the game. I don't think that would work. From what I've seen from Lorenzen towards the end of the year, I don't know what he would look like in a starting role at this point, playing in the big moment like this. Obviously, Sanchez had no experience either before this final start, but hey, at least it was 2 innings of experience, right? Exactly. I would ride with him again, and I would just hope that Topper, unless he, gives up 4 runs in the first inning or 2, I would hope Topper can extend that leash a little bit. But no, man, the last thing I wanted to say before, obviously, we head on over to pregame live and get into tonight and what they need to do to head back to the World Series. I can't even believe, to be honest, that we're at this point of the year again. Just the long journey, man, of how last year ended and the pieces they added, and for us to sit here and just talk about, I know how hard it is to get back, and now you're here. You're here because of that, because of what you've added in Trey Turner, and because of the bullpen arms, and because of the way that Nick Castellanos has resurrected this year. You're right here, but the way that they bounced back and fought in game 5 tells me everything I think I need to know about what this team is made of going forward, where I'm just done questioning them at the first sight of kind of stress, right? Like, don't get me wrong. They deserved blame and criticism and negativity after game 4. Of course they do. But then for me to be nervous about the series as a whole just makes me look back in hindsight and go, well, you were an idiot. Because I look at this game, man, and they come out, Scotty, and they do the one thing they hadn't done the first 2 games of the series, and that's score early, right? You come out, you set the table for the middle of this lineup. Bryson Stott comes around with an early 2-out single. That was huge. Then you have first and third, and what do? They put on a double steal. And Bryce Harper steals home and makes the play. And granted, yeah, if he holds onto the ball, if it's a better throw, Bryce is a sitting duck. He's out. But guess what? You put the pressure on the defense. You make them make that throw, make that catch, and they couldn't execute. You get up to a 2-0 early lead. Zach Wheeler dominates the way we need him to, still cannot get over it. But then here's what happens, right? We're watching together, and they're kind of just falling into a little bit of a lull, right? They get through this 3rd and the 4th and the 5th, and it's still 2-0. And you're sitting here waiting for this offense to punch through. And then what do the 2 biggest names in this lineup come up and do for you? Kyle Schwarber, leadoff home run in the 6th inning. Absolute piss missile. Trey Turner out. Bryce Harper, top of the zone, moonshot. See ya. It's 4-0. The long ball's back. JT Realmuto a few short innings later in the 8th. 2-run jack to left field, and that ball game is a wrap. The way that they were able to come out, punch Arizona in the mouth first, set the tone, be aggressive on the base paths, backed by the pitching, allowed the offense to settle in, get calm, and say, here's our opportunity, and the big bats came through for them yet again.
Yeah, no, I think that was well said, man. I think they ultimately did what they were supposed to, and I think that was the frustrating part with games 3 and 4. It was, we look at that 10-0 game 2 win, and we get to game 3. You get to Brandon Pfaadt, who we really just don't really know much about him. Right. Even the Phillies batting lineup didn't know much about him. We get through that game. It's a 2-1 win for Arizona, and it's like, oh, look how much had to go wrong. Look, we had to score only 1 run for them to win.
Right.
But then you really start to dig into this team, and you're like, well, they got to get game 4 because this is bullshit. And I think you just go through it. You're betting money with it as well, so that like doubles the pain.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is a matter. I think that's part of being a Philadelphia fan, is just living in the moment and taking things for what they are in that moment, but then having to all be in the accountability to look back on it and say, probably overreacted in that moment. It's just a loss. So it's happened in the MLB playoffs, especially in the NLCS, right? Losses happen. And if you said at the beginning of the season that the Phillies would win the NLCS in 6 games, you would have clapped, you would have applauded, and you would have been happy as hell about it. And that's the way we have to look at it in hindsight now.
Look at what's going on in the ALCS. Imagine being a fan of either one of those teams where if I told you before the series that if you're an Astros fan and I told you your team won all 3 games, 3, 4, and 5 in Houston or in Texas, excuse me, what would you say? No, series was over in 5 then, right?
Yeah.
No, it's going 7. If I told you as a Rangers fan that your team took the first 2 games in Houston, what would you say? Oh, it's over in 5, right? No, we're going 7. The home team has not won a game this entire series.
Maybe
you know where home field? You know where home field matters?
Maybe they're all scattered in Texas.
You know where home field matters, Scotty? Philadelphia. And do you know where the Phillies would get home field advantage? If the Astros win. So, with that said, let's get a Phillies win tonight. We're going to go break that down in a few moments. We're going to record, drop it for you guys this afternoon right here on the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed, turn on notifications, whatever you got to do. And then somehow, some way, for 3 hours, we turn into Houston Astros fans and hope to get our revenge and rematch against that ball club, and games 1 and 2 of the 2023 World Series will be played in South Philadelphia. So here's the thing. We are normally live on DSM pregame live, but unfortunately with Scotty's work schedule and everything, with the 5 p.m. start time, it's difficult to go live around 4 or whatever o'clock. And obviously we want to get it out a little bit out later in the day. So yeah, we're going to record this one and get it out for you guys later on in the afternoon with our keys to victory, game predictions, standout stars, and all of that good stuff. But guys, for myself, for Scotty, for DSM, subscribe. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you that comment throughout the show, and enjoy your Monday. Go Phils.
Monday.